I know what some of you who follow this channel for a while and watch my previous videos on Star Wars games are thinking. That after covering 3 games, all prequel based, 2 of which being pretty well received, having the first game I cover based on the original trilogy be this one of all things is another way of me showing my contempt for Star Wars fans. And to you making these assumptions I say, of course it is. But yeah, Star Wars Masters of Teräs Käsi. If you've watched my collecting videos, you'll know I only bought this back in 2021. I had a choice between 3 Star Wars PS1 games as a kid, and was interested in a fighting game, but went with Jedi Power Battles instead, which turned out to be the correct choice in comparison. I didn't know anything besides the fact it was a fighting game and it had unlockable characters, and never found out about its reception until around 2008-2009. This game does actually have a story, apparently being somehow set during Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi at the same time. Pissed off at the first Death Star being blown up, the Emperor hires the assassin Arden Lyn to punch all the rebel leaders to death. The main cast discover this plot and decide they too must sideline their weapons and punch each other around too. For gameplay, it's like many early 3D fighting games. You mainly move in 2D with a very primitive sidestep. When fighting hand to hand, each button corresponds to a limb like in Tekken. In fact, in Star Wars E's, Teräs Käsi means steel hand, like Tekken's Iron Fist in Japanese. Difference is that here it's absolute dogshit. One of the most unresponsive, unbearably slow fighting games I've ever touched, with move lists way too tiny to justify having the 4 limb buttons. If you put this game up against Tekken 1, it would come up pathetic in comparison, but this was released half a year after Tekken 3. There's Mortal Kombat style special move inputs as well, along with Street Fighter-esque command inputs, if they feel like working. You ever tried pulling off half circles with a PS1 D-pad? It's one of the most uncomfortable experiences you can have in life. Not all characters fight hand to hand though, there's one that only fights with weapons and the others can swap between the two, including the heroes. As we all know, pulling a sword out in the middle of the fist fight is fair as long as you claim it's just your special move afterwards. With weapons you have 3 weapon attack buttons and a kick. Finally there's the force meter that builds up during the rounds for use with certain special moves. So let's quickly go over the playable cast. I'll start with the Star Wars regulars before moving on to the original characters created for this game. So starting with Luke Skywalker, he's a character that alternates between fists and his lightsaber. I will never get used to seeing these characters who never used martial arts, half squatting in their half-arsed fighting stances. Every character has 2 costumes which, considering the rest of the game's quality, I am genuinely impressed by. His default outfit is his Bespin outfit with the blue lightsaber, and his alternate is the Black Jedi outfit with the green lightsaber. I won't point out every special move that each character has since they have a lot, and many of them are generic weapon slashers that stretch the definition of special moves. He has a couple dark side moves that use up meter and electrify the opponent a bit. I found the best way to defeat the AI with Luke was to use his lightsaber throwing attack with half circle forward and triangle. At full meter it takes like half their health and has a good chance of ringing them out. Either that or saber uppercutting to try and ring them out too. Oh yeah, ring outs are in this game too. Normally I go into whether I find a character fun or not, but no one is fun in this game, so I can't. I also normally give my thoughts on the characters themselves, as my torturously long Dragon Ball videos would prove. But Star Wars fans have killed my ability to show enthusiasm for Star Wars, so I can't. So let's move on. So next let's look into Han Solo, who fights either bare-handed or with a blaster. His default outfit is the A New Hope costume, while his alternate is an Empire Strikes Back costume. He's got a Shoryuken, which is funny. Apart from that, most of his moves are blaster shots. His full meter special with back, forward, back and mashing triangle is insane as long as you don't get hit while firing. Eventually my strategy devolved into crouch punching to build up meter and then use it all at once. Han's one of those characters that makes sense in a smaller scale game like this where you only had the 3 films to play to the nostalgia for with relatively few well-known combatants. But nowadays with what's come since, I probably wouldn't even think of Han for the roster of a new fighting game. His moveset here shows that, considering all there is to work with from him is shooting while running and shooting while hiding behind cover. Were I choosing the roster for a new fighting game, he'd be quickly squeezed out by all the Jedi with their own unique styles that have popped up since. Although I am imagining a Soul Calibur-like game, and he wouldn't really fit in that anyway. Princess Leia next. Her weapon is a staff she uses in her Boushh disguise. Speaking of, that is both of their costumes, with the helmet off in her primary and it on in her alternate. She has that iconic backflip kick we all know her for, and the less famous thermal detonators. She can also send out a training droid to juggle the opponent with lasers. Once again, crouch punching to build up meter is what gets me the wins here. Don't try actually being good at the game. You can't be. Leia is a character that in my hypothetical Soul Calibur-like Star Wars game, definitely has a higher chance to make it onto a roster than Han, since even before the sequels gave her force powers and showed her with a lightsaber, The bush disguise and the staff alone gave her more to work with than gun. Chewbacca next, and even though it should make more sense for him to fight hand to hand than the other three, he somehow looks the silliest, especially doing his fully outstretched kicks. I get they wanted to make him come across more brutal with his big long swings, but he looks more like a drunk cosplayer than anything else. Chewie's alternate costume just makes him greyer, it's not like there was much else to work with. As one would expect, his weapon is his crossbow. He also has thermal detonators like Leia, and like her and Han, his full meter special is many shots. But for him, he fires many into the air and then they home in from above. But it doesn't mean my strategy was any different than those two. Crouch punch and use meter when full. It just works. Chewie must be better than the rest of the cast or something, as I cleared the arcade mode in half the time I did with nearly everyone else. The last of the movie cast on the default roster next with Boba Fett. Like Chewie, his alternate costume is just a different coloration. He's also got thermal detonators along with flamethrowers, and as is known, he's a big fan of fighting games. So he has Yoshimitsu spinning backhander, and uses his jetpack to perform M. Bison Psycho Crusher. Like the others that use guns, his full meter special is multiple homing shots. In Boba's case, the backhanders were my main spam move of choice. I honestly don't have much to say about him here. Those are the 5 starting characters from the films, but there are also 3 original characters. First is Arden Lyn, the assassin sent by the Emperor to kill the rebel leaders. She has a huge metal arm to give meaning to the steel hand part of the game's title. She's the only character with no weapon. She's got a few flip kicks and various Sonic based moves using her arm, a huge shockwave being her strongest. Makes a change from rapid laser shots that may or may not be homing. I know no one is fun in this game, but I really didn't enjoy playing as her. But she was my first playthrough and I hadn't lowered myself to the game's level of quality yet. Then we have Thok, a Gamorrean guard who has no hand-to-hand style, only fighting with his axe. He also has fire powers, being able to breathe fire for his full meter special, along with making himself grow to be more powerful. He's also really slow, to the point that he managed to be the least enjoyable character in this game for me. It was with Thok where I discovered the crouch punch strategy spam that allowed this video to be made, because it was the only reasonable way to win. Didn't even use specials with this guy, not worth the effort, just crouch punch. The final character in the starting roster is Haw, a Tusken Raider. His weapon style uses the standard rifle they have. He can gas the opponent, but for some reason he does a lot of spinning. I must have been truly fed up recording his playthrough, as I pretty much stopped doing anything but crouch punches and kicks about 3 fights in. I honestly can't remember if I just couldn't pull off his moves or just couldn't be arsed anymore. After taking out all 8 characters, the final boss is a fight against Darth Vader. I'll get to him in a bit, first let's beat him up.
Knockout! Knockout! Ring out! Knockout! 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 Knockout!
Every character has an FMV ending. Luke's is a recreation of him cremating Vader and then the celebrating at Coruscant. Han presses 2 buttons and we see the Falcon flying for 2 seconds. Totally worth the half hour it took to get it. Leia looks around the cockpit of an X-Wing and flies off. Chewbacca starts with the same button pressing footage as Han's, but the Falcon footage is different. Boba Fett stands next to the Slave 1 on best spin and looks around. Thrilling. Arden Lyn looks around for a few seconds. So rewarding. Thok drinks from an empty barrel and burps. Fuck this game. Haw stands on a cliff and yells. About 30 minutes of my life for each of these. I did unlock some new characters for clearing the game on Jedi difficulty with certain characters. Doing so with Luke unlocks the boss, Darth Vader. Now there's another one who looks hilarious in his squatting stance. His alternate costume makes him purplish. He shares a lot of his lightsaber moves with Luke, but he does have some of his own. For one thing, he has Force Lightning moves. Is this the first thing that shows Vader using this? It's hard to get too bummed out about Vader being as unfun as the rest since, regardless of anyone's feelings about his guest appearance in Soul Calibur 4, at least he got another chance. And it worked out for him better than it did for Yoda. Completing the game on Jedi as Han unlocked a Stormtrooper, with the Speeder uniforms from Endor being the alternate costume. There is little to say about the Stormtrooper as he is an exact clone of Han, which means you can see a Stormtrooper perform a Shoryuken, which grants this game some worth. For a purely original trilogy roster, he works as a fun hidden extra. For doing so as Leia, we unlock Princess Leia exclamation point. It's just Leia in different clothes, the slave bikini. I noticed the exclamation point in the name for the more revealing unlockable costume. Feels like a deliberate nod to Soul Blade, which did the same thing. I wonder if this was always intended to be unlockable, or maybe they started out as a normal alternate before they slapped the Bouche head swap in to replace this one for an easy extra unlockable character. There are still 2 more characters to unlock. There's a team mode where if I enter while holding the shoulder buttons, I'm given the team of 4 good guys against the team of 4 bad guys in the Battle for Mara Jade. I defeat all my opponents to unlock her. I have no experience with the all expanded universe, but I do know who Mara Jade is. Barely. I know she was Luke's wife and got killed off at some point. That's it. Her alternate costume lacks sleeves, but I don't know what either are from, so it means nothing to me. Mara Jade is a mix of Luke and Vader's moves. She's also the final boss if you play as Vader. Despite having no experience with the character, outside of unlocking the boss Vader, I think Mara Jade is the best choice for an unlockable character from what we have. She's in that position of being beloved but not known of in the mainstream, which makes her feel like the perfect unlockable reward. Fans of the EU get a character they like, and unfamiliar fans may find her interesting and end up looking into it. Shame it couldn't have happened in a better game. And then there's the survival mode, in which defeating 10 characters unlocks Jodo Kast. He's a model swap of Boba Fett with nothing to himself. I'll be honest, I have no idea who this guy is. I'm sure fans of him from whatever he's from would enjoy his presence, but I get nothing from this guy. But yeah, that's the roster. Overall, for a 13 character original trilogy roster, it's fine. We got the bare minimum of the main cast, and while I'm not against the idea of the original characters, I would prefer if 2 of them, or 1 of them and Jodo Kast, were swapped with Lando and Obi-Wan and just drop in the story entirely if their presence somehow contradicts things. If we can see Chewie doing Virtua Fighter moon jumps, it's not too out there to see Alec Guinness doing the same. All that's left is the last 5 arcade playthroughs.
Knockout. 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 Ring out. You win.
Vader's ending just shows Alderaan being blown up. The Stormtrooper just gets a block of text and a promotion to the Emperor's Royal Guard. Slave Leia gets Free Leia's ending. Mara Jade gets text saying that she did well, but her future allegiance is still unclear. Jodo Kast gets text saying that he proved himself to be very good. Also there's a big head mode. Woo. This is shit. I've played a few Star Wars games over the years, and I have no hesitation in saying that this one is by far the worst of them. I'll be surprised if any Star Wars games I try out in the future are as bad as this one. The only reason it avoids being the worst fighting game I've ever played is by Fight on the Switch existing. The frustrating part of all this is that this game, even 26 years later, remains the only attempt at a traditional Star Wars fighting game. How has no one else tried? Especially after the prequels introduced so many new colourful Jedi to make a memorable roster out of. And that was a time where there were a million Star Wars games of every genre coming out. I know there was a kind of arena fighter on the Wii, but that's not what I'm talking about. I just think someone is wasting a perfect idea here, especially with 9 main films and so many characters that would fit perfectly into a fighting game. I was not expecting, say, Power Rangers to get a huge successful modern fighting game before Star Wars. I mean, not that I care or anything. What, you think I'm some kind of Star Wars fan or something? How dare you? Think that of me again and I will end you. Don't ever think I will put myself down on the level of your filth, you fucking